All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order a special meeting of the Beloit City Council. Roll call.
A roll call shows all councilors present.
I believe the first item on the agenda. Well, only an item, actually.
A resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Beloit, the Town of Turtle, and the property owner, annexation petition and agreement.
Okay. Mr. City Manager?
Well, let me just make a couple overview comments, and I'm going to ask the city attorney to talk a little more about the details. But the city, a few months ago, was approached by a property owner that lives up on Claremont Drive, which is a subdivision up near Beloit Memorial Hospital. And their septic was failing, and there happens to be a public sewer that belongs to the city of Beloit already available on Claremont Drive. The issue here was that, first of all, this property is not contiguous to the city, could not be attached at the current time, and secondly, based on the boundary area agreement in place between the city and the town, it's outside of the boundary area or the boundary annexation area in any event, and requires the town board to sign off on any annexation of those properties into the city. We set about to determine if we could solve this problem because the property owner really desperately needed the sewer service. And we came up with this agreement which provides for a deferred annexation. The annexation petition itself is actually incorporated into the contract language. And this agreement will run with title and stay with the property until such time as it becomes contiguous and then automatically be brought in to the city. So we think this is a good solution for all the parties involved. The town board has already approved the agreement, as has the property owner. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our city attorney, Tom Casper, maybe make a few more specific comments and answer any specific questions that councilors have about the legal basis for any of the provisions. Tom?
Thank you. There were 6 primary goals that we wanted to accomplish in this agreement, and that those were to make sure that we could enforce any city sewer ordinances, and that's in the agreement. Secondly, that the owner, whoever it happens to be at any given time, be responsible for all sewer charges. That's pretty obvious, but that's in there. And maybe more importantly, should an owner become delinquent on those charges, since it's outside of our jurisdiction and we can't add it to our tax rolls, that the town agreed to do that on our behalf. The town has agreed to do that, and it's in the agreement. That the parcel would be annexed at the point when it becomes partially or wholly contiguous to any city property, including city right-of-way. That the agreement be in recordable form, and it is, and it will be recorded, assuming if council approves it, it will be executed by the city and recorded. It's previously been executed by Mr. Douglas, and the town board at its meeting September 11th approved and executed the agreement. And lastly, that the document itself constitute a petition for annexation. And it is styled that fashion. It contains those recitals. And again, it's been approved by the owner making that petition, the town board, and if the council chooses to do so by this body. So at the time of contiguity, there won't be a need to get further signatures and things like that. That will already be built in. The situation maybe is somewhat unusual in the sense there is no outstanding special assessment for this sewer. This sewer was put in by Rogers Development in conjunction with their subdivision work I don't remember the number of years back, but it was necessary to run through the town to connect to our interceptor. So the owner is fortuitous that there's a city sewer line literally right in front of his house, and we are not in the position of needing to account for the costs of that sewer line that was borne by the developer. So with those points made, I'd be ready to answer any questions any of the members of council may have.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Lukey, second by Levy. Questions and comments? Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. I just would like to ask for clarification and assurance. So if this property owner is delinquent in payments, can you explain the mechanism for how the city will be assured to receive its expenses?
The utility would notify our treasurer. Our treasurer is aware and will be aware of this agreement. He or she, at that point, would notify the township. The town would then include it on their roll, which is usually in the fall of the year, I think mid-October.
It's October, yeah, the cutoff is in October, and what happens is we have a number of these every year. We declare them as a special charge. They're then reported to the county collector's office, to the county treasurer's office, and they're added to the tax bills for these parcels. We have a similar agreement in our water utility agreements with both the towns of Beloit and Turtle, that if we have an account delinquent within their jurisdictions, because we have water customers already in both towns, they have to also declare those as being a special charge and roll them onto the property tax bill. And this would add that same provision into this sewer agreement.
I might add, Mr. Forrest, it's the treasurer's practice to send out a written warning and an opportunity to come current, and the owner would get that before it was actually rolled onto the tax levy.
Okay, and as a follow-up, do we have a sense of, in terms of history and working with other municipalities with our water utility, have they, because I know that we've done that case with South Beloit, have they been cooperative in enrolling it?
To my experience, the Wisconsin communities, the two towns of Beloit and Turtle, have been cooperative, and that's been pretty seamless. South Beloit is a different animal.
Yeah, they do not have that ability in the state of Illinois. There's a Wisconsin statute. Both the towns have been cooperative. They get a small list, usually not that many every year. And I can also tell you that many of the other municipalities around the state utilize this same mechanism as well to collect delinquent utility bills.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I know we've had problems collecting in South Beloit. So your sense that this would not be the case?
No, I based on past experiences, as Manager Arft indicated, with the sewer or the water side of things, that's not been an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the matter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by DeForest, second by Levy. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned from our special meeting. Now, we will move forward for the regular meeting, and I'd like to call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Beloit City Council to order. It is now 7:15 here at 100 State Street, Beloit, Wisconsin, on Monday, September 16, 2013. Roll call, please.
Roll call shows all councilors present.
Second item is Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3A.
A proclamation declaring September of 2013 as Campus Fire Safety Month.
Mr. Vice President and Chief.
Whereas student-related housing fires in Wisconsin and across the country have tragically cut short the lives of some of the youth of our nation, and whereas it is recognized that automatic fire alarm systems and smoke alarms provide the necessary early warning to occupants and the fire department of a fire so that appropriate action can be taken, and whereas it is recognized that automatic fire sprinkler systems are a highly effective method of controlling or extinguishing a fire in its early stages, protecting the lives of the building's occupants, and whereas many students are living in off-campus occupancies, Greek housing, and residence halls that are not adequately protected with automatic fire sprinkler systems and automatic fire alarm systems or adequate smoke alarms, And whereas it is recognized that fire safety education is an effective method of reducing the occurrence of fires and reducing the resulting loss of life and property damage. And whereas it is vital to educate students about the importance of fire safety behavior so that these behaviors can help to promote their safety during their college years and beyond. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the President of the City Council of the City of Beloit, in recognition of and to express support of the establishment of September as Campus Fire Safety Month, does hereby declare the month of September 2013 as Campus Fire Safety Month, and encourages technical schools, colleges, and universities to take the necessary steps to ensure fire-safe living environments through fire safety education, installation of fire suppression and detection systems, smoke alarms, and carbon monoxide alarms. Presented this 16th day of September 2013.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this proclamation. The September, being Campus Fire Safety Month, is the beginning of our fire safety education season. As you know, National Fire Prevention Week is coming up in October. We certainly appreciate the partnerships that our local learning institutions have with the Beloit Fire Department. We drill with them. We work with them in education of their students. We work side by side on disaster planning. And one of those individuals that helps us with that, John Winkelman, is here with us this evening from Beloit College. I want to thank him for his attendance. And thank you for this proclamation to highlight this very important life safety measure.
Thank you. Item number 4 is public hearings. We have item number 4A.
A resolution approving a conditional use permit to allow vehicle repair in the C3 Community Commercial District for the property located at 1119 Broad Street. The Plan Commission recommended approval 5-0.
Madam Director.
Ace Auto Sales and Repair operated at this location until closing earlier this year. Because the prior use was discontinued, a conditional use permit is required before the vehicle repair may be reestablished in the C3 district. The auto sales is permitted by right, and although the subject property is located in the Wellhead Protection Overlay District, the proposed uses are permitted by right in that district. The applicant is intending to lease that property to a business that will sell and repair vehicles. The property includes a 7,800 square foot building with one overhead door and a fenced outdoor storage area to the east of the building. The building was constructed in 1961. It's currently served by 3 driveways on Broad Street. The westernmost driveway is not needed, so we are recommending a condition of approval that will require elimination of this driveway and restoration of the terrace. The existing parking lot is in deteriorated condition. Therefore, we are recommending a condition of approval that would require repair or replacement of the lot. The property does not have landscaping because of when the building was constructed. And so there is not the required landscape strip, which we are also recommending as part of the resolution approving this conditional use. Plan Commission reviewed this item at September 4th and held a public hearing. No one came out to speak for or against it. The resolution before you tonight includes 10 conditions, which are that this conditional use permit authorizes vehicle repair within the existing building in conjunction with auto sales inside and or outside on the subject property. Vehicle repair may not occur outside of the enclosed building. Junk vehicles as defined in Chapter 7 shall not be stored outside. The applicant shall obtain an automobile dealer's license from the state of Wisconsin prior to selling vehicles. The applicant shall patch, seal coat, and stripe the asphalt parking lot by November 15th. The applicant shall install landscape strips as defined and specified in Chapter 34 along the perimeter of the asphalt parking lot facing Broad Street and Grand Avenue by November 15th. The applicant shall remove the vinyl siding on the front facade and replace the windows with contemporary commercial-grade windows by November 15th after obtaining an architectural review certificate and permit. The applicant did request to keep the vinyl siding but have it be brown. Plan Commission debated that at some length and came up with this condition, which is slightly different than the staff recommendation. 8, the applicant shall refurbish, reface, or remove the existing pole sign cabinet by November 15th. The applicant shall remove the westernmost driveway and restore the curb and gutter and grass by November 15th, and then just the standard about any major changes coming back through this public process and minor changes being able to be approved administratively. And it was approved unanimously by Plan Commission.
Thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing on item 4A. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak on item 4A, please approach the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm General Manager for Coordinator Enterprises. My name is Brad Lauber. We're okay with all the conditional or the use or the 10 items that they had. Larry and I have looked at the window application, and that would almost be impossible because I don't know how long ago they actually put the vinyl siding over that, but it was over the over the windows when we bought the property. We've owned the property approximately 15 years now. So what we were going to do is, I got some samples here. We were going to try and get as close to the brick. If you see the picture there, we're going to try and put new siding on there, make it as close to the brick color as possible, so it'll blend in better. That siding's been there since we've purchased the building. And then I also noticed how they wanted us to move the westernmost driveway there. That might create a hardship for, I think that's Voss rental garages there. I think they use that driveway a lot there, not that they're supposed to, but I think they do, and I think that's, our guys, when they're renting it, are probably going to have that closed, or not closed up, but they'll probably have new cars for sale there. So they probably won't want the cars coming out that driveway, so that may create a hardship for Voss's rental space there. I don't know what we want to do about that, but that would be the only other thing that I can think of. Other than that, I think we were okay with everything that they recommended. So we'd just like to know if it's okay if we do if we do put the vinyl siding up instead of the windows.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President, I can quickly comment on that. I think we can certainly
Okay.
work with them on improved siding treatment that would blend into the brick. I don't have a problem with that if you want to build that in. I'm not sure if we'll go with that kind of residential look siding that's there. We might want something that's vertical that kind of plays off the vertical nature of the windows, but we could certainly do a siding rather than replace the whole window that would blend into the brick and be decorative. I think
Suggesting
that
that
would
we
be
leave this up for
appropriate.
architectural review.
Leave it up to architectural review. It's got to go through the process anyway, so I
Okay.
think that's a reasonable request. The fourth driveway looks like it really is not needed. You don't need it for your property.
No,
Yeah.
we don't. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to create a hardship for Voss, because they had the
He's up
rentals
there.
or the storage garage there. It would be to the west of
That's
the
not
building
in
area.
use now, is that?
I think, Voss owns it, as far as I know. I think they still own those. Yeah, I'm not sure. But that's who owns it, because it butts right up to their property there, the Voss's old real estate building there, or their office there. But yeah, like I said,
Let us see if is there a cross easement or anything? Do they have any access rights? I'm not sure how they get to that garage.
yeah, that's why I wondered, because if you look at it there's not really anywhere for them to drive up, into that area. And I'm afraid if we took that driveway out, I don't know how they're going to get to those garages, or that approach there. Because otherwise, they're going to have to come through our property there to get to it.
It would appear from the map that they have to anyway, because they're passing on to you, going up into using that driveway to cross, and that's on your parcel.
Right.
Yeah, they're all on this property, so if they're using them, they're crossing here. That's why I was curious if there was some kind of a cross easement that was put onto this property when this was developed. But
Not that I know of, not that I'm aware of, because we were marketing it to sell the property, and that did not come up in the marketing when they were selling.
why don't we just put some language in there that we would require the westernmost driveway to be eliminated if possible. And if there's no cross easement on it, if there's no access for that other property, then there's no need for it. And that could be eliminated, and that would clean the property up and provide a little more room there also for parking and stuff.
Something
That
we
would be
can something we can
acceptable.
discuss. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right.
We can discuss.
Yeah. Okay. Any other persons wishing to come forward and speak on item 4A? Second call for persons to come forward and speak on item 4A. Third and final call for persons to come forward and speak on item 4A. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on item 4A and entertain a motion.
Motion for approval. Second.
Moved by Luke Keith, second by Van de Bogart. Councilor DeForest.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure how to do this procedurally, but could I request request an amendment to the motion to remove condition number 7 and leave authority to the Architectural Review Board to address the facade of the building.
How did you want to state that?
That's not what we were talking about. We do not want to remove it. We simply want to replace the wording in there that that the siding will have to be replaced subject to architectural review.
Is that what you were intending, Councilor DeForest?
That's what you were intending.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So that amendment would be in order.
Okay, so with the amendment, we'll let's see, let's look at this again. That would be number 7, shall applicants, okay, let's see. So we'll just simply remove the shall remove vinyl siding on the front facade and replace with windows of contemporary commercial grade and just to simply state obtain as architectural review certificate and permit.
If you just leave it, the applicant shall remove the vinyl siding on the front facade and replace the siding with contemporary commercial grade siding by November 15th after obtaining an architectural review certificate and permit. And then we'll work with the property owner. We'll come up with some nice looking decorative siding to kind of frame that out, something that blends into the brick.
Okay, so we have okay, so that's your motion.
I have a question on that.
Okay. Do we have a second so that we can have a question about it? Okay, second by Councilor Spreitzer, Councilor Levy.
My question is, with that change then, and we're saying that the original to replace the windows with contemporary commercial grade windows by November 15th, if we're adding another step in the process here, is that going to push out the date any further, or is November 15th still a date that we can have all this completed if it has to go through another step? I'm just checking. I want to make sure the applicant has enough time, that we're not saying November 15th, that we're changing from what we recommended.
Yeah, we haven't added another step. The windows were also subject to architectural review and obtaining a building permit, so we haven't added another step.
Okay.
All we're doing is giving them relief from the requirement to replace the windows. We really don't need to replace the windows. If it's feasible, a somewhat larger window might be nicer for the owner and the tenant, but if it isn't feasible to change the size of the window because of the interior configuration, what we really needed to do was get the residential grade look vinyl siding that was added in there. We wanted to get that upgraded. So changing the siding accomplishes our goal.
And I do have another question, but I don't know if you want to act on the amendment and then answer my question, or would you rather for me to ask my other question now?
Well, go ahead. You've got the floor.
Can I get the diagram back up? I have a question on.
Oh, yeah, just a second.
I know I have it, but just for the people that's at home, maybe watching, have a question. Okay, now, so that's the building. Are we doing anything with the lot behind the building? Nothing? Okay. Okay.
All right. Is that all you have?
Yeah, that was my question.
All right. Councilor Spreitzer?
Thank you. So, looking at the picture of the building, we're talking about putting in something instead of the white siding that we see there now, putting in just something that matches the color around it better, essentially. Is that what?
That's correct.
Ms. Christensen, do you have any comments on this amendment? Does this it seem like something that's in line with the Plan Commission discussion, or do you have anything else to add to this?
Brad Lover and Mr. Cornelia were not at Plan Commission. So Plan Commission felt, Chuck was there too, felt that the windows should be, that the siding should be removed and the windows put in there. They were going based on just the staff report. They did not hear from Mr. Lover or Mr. Cornelia. So they discussed it for quite a while and rewrote the condition to include the requirement for the windows. So I don't know how they'll feel about it until Wednesday. I tell them if you approve it that way. I don't know, Chuck, do you What was your feeling on it?
At the time, it sounded like a pretty good idea.
And do you feel comfortable with this amendment?
I guess that we wanted to see, as part of it, we wanted to see the window replaced, because I think that was in our original staff recommendation, even with the replacement of the siding. I think we still had to replace the window with a contemporary commercial grade window. So I didn't go on site, Drew's gone on site, and so it is possible that window is not commercial grade. So that
Probably is not.
So that he still wanted that window replaced. Drew's recommendation was that the siding be replaced. If you look in the staff report, the condition was that to remove the vinyl siding and then replace the windows with a contemporary commercial grade window. So that was important to them, to Drew.
And the point was, if I may, to get a larger window to fill the opening.
Yeah.
So what happened is it looks like there was a larger, more commercial type window in there originally. Somebody took it out and they put a small, probably or looks like a small residential window, and then they put the siding in the rest
Yeah.
of the opening.
And I think Drew was just focused on this one, not the other one. So I think he was just focused on where the small window is and removing the siding and replacing that with a full window, because the way that looks, is not how you would normally see in a commercial building. I mean, I don't think he met with Mr. Lawver in terms of what's inside and what's, behind the windows. And then Plan Commission went beyond that and took the other one as well and wanted the siding removed.
Why don't we still just leave it flexible to deal with it as part of architectural review? If we can replace the window and get a bigger window, that would probably be better. But if there's something back there, we don't know what's on the inside. There could be a partition there, or could be a piece of equipment or something mounted in there. If it's not practical, then we'll come up with some kind of a nice, hopefully a vertical type siding that would complement the building and improve the looks of it dramatically.
Okay, the question I would bring to the table here is that this states that the work essentially says that states that the work should be completed by November 15th, and ordering a custom commercial window and getting it in and getting it installed, that's a very extremely tight timeline.
Yeah. I mean, you can move the timelines.
Okay.
I mean,
so-
everything is amendable.
Charles?
Yes.
Was this date one that the petitioner felt that was consistent with their ability to perform, or is that something that came from staff?
I think it came from staff.
No, I think we
Well,
we need
since
to
you're
know.
amending it, why don't you just add a phrase, unless extended by staff. We do this all the time when we're working with property owners and contractors, and if they've got a window on order and it doesn't come in, we're certainly not going to go over and issue citations on the 16th of November. We'll simply work with them until the parts arrive.
We'll have him fill out an extension form, and we'll give him till spring usually.
Another
Okay,
question.
so that's something you can handle administratively?
Well, if you put a deadline of November 15th, like just in general, if you put a deadline on a conditional use and it is impossible for the applicant to do it, what we do is if it's reasonable to allow the extension, we will have them fill out an extension form and then extend it to what we think is reasonable. We don't just hit them, like Larry said, hit them with tickets.
Chuck?
I noticed that the windows to the right of the window we just talked about have exhaust fans
I see that.
coming out. What are they for?
Maybe Mr. Lawver knows
my
what
real
they're for.
question is, I assume they exhaust air and possibly fumes. I don't know.
It's a shop area,
Yeah.
so I'm guessing that's what it does.
Yeah, are they consistent with code? They seem to be kind of low to the ground.
I don't think we've been in there to verify whether they meet code.
Okay.
I know Harry's been through there for the wellhead protection stuff, but I don't think
Yeah.
Danny's been in there.
The other question I have is on the fencing. That looks like 6-foot fencing. Is that what can be built in a C3?
It would not be permitted today.
Do we have the mechanism for it to be permitted now, or has that been covered?
It essentially is allowed to continue. I was looking for the
Okay.
photo. or for the map. It's allowed to continue to be there,
Okay.
unless it's deteriorated and.
Is that where used cars would be parked for sale, or cars that are being held for repair?
I think it was the impound area, was what that area was.
Pound area?
Impound area is what it's on their site plan. I'm trying to find it, but it's not coming up for me. Yeah, if you look at this, it says floor plan, but based on the air photo, this is actually outside. So it's an impound area.
I always think of that as something that a tow truck hauls over there from the police department.
And that's probably
That's not what
it
it, is that what it is?
That's probably what it was used for before, because
Oh.
it was Ace Towing.
And was that parking lot, was that taken into account by Water Resources?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
They apparently did a full tour of the site and building.
All right. Councilor Levy.
No, you already got me.
Oh, you got you, okay. Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. So 2 questions. So we don't know what is going on structurally interior to the building that would make it quite a hardship to replace that window, which is why I think it is a good plan to allow some flexibility for the Architectural Review Board to negotiate with the property owners. And, sorry, my brain has just lapsed on what the other issue is I wanted to raise.
Well, the west parking lot entrance was the other issue that came up. Do you want to make that a little more flexible? We'd like to get that removed. This building has been here for a long time. It obviously, hasn't had a lot of improvements. Now there's a change of occupancy, and we should try to upgrade the site to the extent that we reasonably can, considering the inherent limitations of the style, the architectural style of the building, and of course the use of the site, which is a fairly heavy automotive type use, and that's what's always been there, and so it's probably reasonable to continue that. But that's why we wanted to remove that west driveway, and if, again, if you can leave that flexible, we certainly would be willing to investigate whether anyone else has any access rights to that, and if not, we would like to get it removed.
I remember the other question I wanted to raise. So there is a condition that no junk vehicles are allowed on site. So I don't know if that speaks to some of your concern, Councilor Kincaid, that there's a stipulation that no junk vehicles can be stored.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's there would suggest that we.
You're good.
You're good.
You're on.
I think the fact that that's a condition of approval, I think that's okay. My thought was, we don't know what was there prior to this, and were there leaking motors and such. But if our staff has reviewed that and is satisfied with it, I guess we can rely on staff's report on that. But there is no issue at all with respect to protecting the groundwater.
Yeah, Harry went out there, and so I'm trusting that Harry knows his fault.
I'm sure he does.
Because he's very protective of his water. So
I appreciate that.
Okay. Do you have any other questions or comments before we vote on the amendment?
Just to be clear, the amendment replaces the word window with siding on condition number 7.
Yes. That's my understanding. Is that your understanding as well, Councilor DeForest?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. There are no further questions or comments on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment to or condition 7, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So now we'll have we have a motion? Do we need a new motion for the underlying conditional use?
No, you had a motion to
We're
approve.
already good to go then, okay. Do we have any other additional questions or comments on the underlying issue? Councilor Spitzer?
Mr. City Manager, did we still need to do something regarding the driveway, were you thinking, or can that be handled with the existing language?
I think you probably should do another amendment that said the applicant shall remove the westernmost driveway if practical and restore the curb and gutter, and then we'll see about this other access. If there's no cross easements, if there's no access to any other property, then it can be removed. If for some reason legally it can't, it has to be left there, then we'll have to leave it in.
If we use the word "if practical," legally, who decides what the definition of practical is?
Tom, you want to comment on, is that strong enough or a more definitive enough word for you, or you want to say some more specific about cross easement or alternative access point or something like that? I suppose we could say unless a cross easement exists to an adjacent property. That would be very specific.
With unless other legal requirements prohibit.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of
you
legally.
could do that.
Legally.
Unless other legal requirements prohibit the removal.
I would make that amendment with the language just quoted.
Do we have a second on that?
You're talking about number 9.
Number 9, yes.
Number 9.
Yeah, I'd second.
Okay, second by Van de Bogart. Councilor Kincaid?
So are we clear that the staff will be working with the owner as to whether that driveway would be removed? And in their best judgment, they might make a recommendation?
Well, the way the motion reads, if I may, Mr. President, and unless there's a legal requirement, a cross easement or some other legal agreement that allows for adjacent property owners to use that curb cut, we're going to remove it. If there is a legal requirement that an adjacent property owner has a right to that, then obviously we can't remove it. We'll have to leave it.
Good. Mr. City Attorney?
Well, I pressed earlier just to indicate I concurred with the President's suggested language. I think that would be workable.
Okay. Councilor DeForest?
Sorry, so just for clarification, we're saying the applicant shall remove the westernmost driveway unless it's not legally feasible? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We have a motion and a second for this amendment. Any other questions or comments on this amendment? All in favor of amending, or making this amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We've made this amendment to 7-0. Do we have any other further questions or comments? Councilor Spitzer.
I just wanted to ask the applicant or the applicant's representative, given the complicated discussion and the changes we've just had, if you're clear on what we've done and if you are comfortable that you can meet the requirements as they now stand. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Right, hearing no other comments or questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. So, item 5, we move on to citizens' participation. We've reached the point in the agenda for citizens to speak to the council about issues that are coming before us or may come before us in the future. Council members may not act on any requests at this meeting, but may refer a speaker to staff for assistance. We ask that you hold your comments to 3 minutes or less and refrain from personal attacks of any kind. I have no sheets in front of me, so if anyone would wish to come forward and speak under citizens' participation, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address. Second call for persons to come forward and speak under citizens' participation. Third and final call for persons to come forward and speak under citizens' participation. Hearing none, I'll close the citizens' participation portion of the agenda and move on to the consent agenda. Item 6, all items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point in the agenda. Councilor Councilor DeForest, you wish to have something removed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to request that item 6,
Sorry.
Mr. President, I'd like to request that item 6G be removed, please.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other councilors wishing to remove something from the consent agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion approved. Second.
Moved by Lupke, second by Levy. So the consent agenda consists of items 6A through 6F. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. Now to item 6G.
A resolution awarding Public Works Contract C13-16 Post and Emerson Storm Sewer.
Mr. Boyson.
This is a project that was identified during the year to meet bond allocation opportunities. So it was the highest priority storm sewer project, which meets the categorical requirement of the bond funding. So the project was bid. 4 bids were received for the project. The low bid was $191,929.30 from the E.N. Hughes Company, Inc. It was 22% more than the engineer's estimate of $157,039. Pavement patches were higher than anticipated. Prairie Avenue Storm Sewer was an alternate bid and included if adequate funding allowed. Adequate funding was available. E&N Hughes Company, Inc. is considered a responsible bidder for this project. The costs of this project are as follows: $131,483.30 for the base bid construction, $60,446 for the alternate bid construction, $28,789.40 for change orders or extra work, for a total of $220,718.70. No properties will be special assessed for this project, and we recommend award of the bid based on these bids that are received.
Do we have a motion to approve 6G?
So moved.
Moved by Levy, second by Lupke. Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. I do have some questions. In the name of transparency, I just wanted to ask the questions because this project was not on our proposed capital improvement projects. Could you describe a little bit about how and why this was selected and how it's being funded?
The project was, well, the funding was identified as available and unallocated funding from the bond issue that was, I believe, constructing the stormwater detention facilities on the city golf course. So these funds were earmarked for stormwater. They had to be spent on that particular type of categorical improvement. So then the engineering staff evaluated stormwater needs, and this was the highest priority in this category of improvement citywide.
So just to be clear then, these were remaining funds that weren't used for stormwater related projects, and so they're being allocated to this stormwater project, and this was decided upon because it's considered high priority. For what reason?
It's identified in the reports here that storms earlier in the year particularly identified it as a flood troubled area. These heavy storms we had particularly brought to light, I think, something that's been known for a while but was particularly evident earlier this year during these heavy rains, that the area just does not have storm sewers currently, and it doesn't, was found to not function properly during these intense rainfalls that we've experienced recently particularly.
Thank you. And I do have one follow-up question, which I had sent earlier. So the bid came in significantly higher than the engineer's estimate. Could you speak to why that's the case?
When our staff engineers estimated the project, they utilized some recent bid prices. And in recent years, bid prices have been relatively stable. But in this past few months in particular, we've had a number of indications and a number of feedback that the cost of particularly concrete pavement is going up significantly. And that's, upon review following receipt of the bids, that was found essentially being a somewhat lower than reasonable estimate given the market trends that are currently occurring.
Okay, so in your estimation, this bid is reasonable that we've received?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the matter on item 6G. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. Item 7, licenses. 7A.
A resolution setting the return date and authorizing the issuance of a summons for an alcohol license sanction hearing for HRNSV Entertainment, DBA Addiction, Jamie Hernandez, agent, located at 1310 Cranston Road.
Good evening. At the July 2013 meeting, the Alcohol Beverage License Control Committee recommended a 60-day suspension of the Class B licenses for Club Addiction. A complaint has been prepared and has currently been filed with the city clerk. At this time, the law requires that the council set a hearing date for this matter to authorize the issuance of a summons for the business to appear at that hearing. Staff has tentatively scheduled it for Monday, September 23rd at 6:30 p.m., provided that date is acceptable with the council. And Attorney Henderson has indicated a willingness to assist the council at the hearing as well. So I'd ask that it be set for Monday, September 23rd at 6:30.
Make that motion, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Vander Bogart, second by Levy. Do we have any questions or comments on that date? Hearing none, I'll call the matter. All in favor of setting a date for that hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And item passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Item 8A.
A proposed ordinance to create Section 15.03 Sub 4G of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to loitering on public property. The ABLCC recommended approval 4-0.
Mrs. Krieger.
Good evening. Many of you are aware of the issues that we are having in the 3rd Street and the 4th Street parking lot. We have been experiencing those problems for probably about the last 2 years with the crowds that are gathering between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. in that lot. In the staff report, I identify some of the issues that we're having, most particularly the reckless type driving, the consumption of alcohol, and what I likely suspect is other illicit things, the use of the property itself and the neighboring properties as a restroom. We tried to come up with various ideas on how to remedy these problems. We worked with the tavern owners that are in the area. As we suspected, most of the open businesses at the time that these were going on are just the taverns. We haven't gotten a lot of success in actually dealing with the problems because of the public nature of the parking lot. There have been a few suggestions that have been tossed around. Staff feels that this is the least cost-intensive one to try to see if we can get some of these problems resolved before taking any other steps that would be needed. The city currently has a loitering and a prowling statute, or ordinance, 1503. They address private parking lots open for public, open for the use by the public, private property that's not open to the use of the public, and this kind of fits in that hole for public property where we didn't already have an ordinance in place. We tried to outline those behaviors that we were trying to curb in Section A of that ordinance, and then also allowing for the legitimate use of those public parking lots that would be accepted for the downtown Beloit, kind of gatherings that they have in the parking lots to allow for those activities. So it has been, Councilor Levy suggested at the Alcohol Beverage License Control Committee that we interview the downtown business holders to see if they have any concerns about the ordinance. 100% of them were in favor of this ordinance. I've also spoken to the executive director of the downtown Beloit Association. She's indicated to me that there's a number of upper floor housing grants that have just been distributed, and having this type of ordinance in place to deal with that, the late night type crowds would be helpful for those residents that do live in our downtown area. So with that, we would ask that you suspend the rules for the first reading and make a determination on the passage of this ordinance tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I have. Also, Captain Rissy and Deputy Chief Duncan are here if you have any questions of the police department.
Splendid. I think we should go ahead and get started. Let's. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules. Second.
Moved by Lukey, second by Levy. Do we go ahead and start our conversation off? Councilor DeForest.
Is it okay to discuss the merits? Because I think that might affect my decision to whether or not to suspend the rules.
I think that's perfectly acceptable to me.
Okay, thank you. So to be clear, this ordinance would apply to all of our public parking lots, correct?
Correct.
And so I know that quite a few residents have raised concerns about the parking lot at the Rotary River Center as well. I wanted to try to get some sense, because this language is very broad, In number 2, create or cause to be created any disturbance or annoyance to the comfort of any person is quite broad. So in effect, from what I understand, I want to make sure I understand how the enforcement of this ordinance would work. A police officer would arrive at the parking lot, and if they determine from their best judgment that a person is creating a disturbance or annoyance, they would ask the person to leave the premises. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, there's not necessarily any other violation besides the officer asking them to leave the premises. Is that correct? Unless they're violating another statute of some kind.
Yeah, there may or may not be another basis for either arrest or a citation, but this would ask, the officer would ask the person to leave the premise, and if they refuse to, then they could be issued a citation for
Okay.
this.
So in effect, this ordinance, it sounds like from my layperson's interpretation of it, it allows our officers some teeth so that when they arrive at a scene at a public parking lot, if things are loud, obnoxious, maybe getting out of control, that they can just ask the people to leave as a way to prevent any possible escalated behavior or violations.
Correct. Currently, there isn't really that nice little teeth to what we currently do. If the police were to arrive on scene, and please, department, correct me if I'm wrong, and there's shenanigans about, and there just needs to be some control over the scene, we can ask them to leave, and generally the people do leave, but on the off chance that they don't, this would allow us to take some action if there wasn't any other cause for arrest.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilor Van de Bogart.
Well, I too have a bit of a concern with the create or cause to be created, a breach of the peace among any other person, a comfort of any person. In the hands of police authorities that are less full of integrity as our current set is, this sort of language could be used to disperse anybody for any reason, whether it's political protest, whether it's a prayer meeting, whether it's you pick it. And I assume a large dose of common sense is used here, and I'm certain it would be by, as I say, our current police staff. But flash forward to the protests in Madison less than a couple of years ago, and the politics involved in all that. Are we creating a possible monster in this ordinance?
I don't believe so. The current disorderly conduct statute, Mr. Van de Bogart, that you might be familiar with, the cause or created disturbance in the public setting, that also has some very broad language that has been upheld. And I think a lot of common sense has to be used to arrest or cite for that as well. If this committee finds that, or this council, finds that particular language is troubling to them, you can certainly strike that. The intent for sub A was to merely provide the police department some kind of guidelines about what will be tolerable and what won't. So if the council has any issues with any particular section, you can certainly strike that. Most Wisconsin communities have a no loitering on public property, and that's it, something similar to the sub B, where that, we come in, we want to say you leave, you have to leave. I was attempting to give some further guidance to that so that we could have some kind of standards.
Well, as I say, I think our officers are pretty reasonable when it would come to something like this, but it's possible to envision a set of officers that are not as reasonable, and perhaps we'd have to visit or revisit the ordinance at that point. But if they feel or you feel that this is a tool in the tool chest that we need, I guess I'm prepared to go along with this, but I do have a bit of a caveat in the back of my mind in terms of police abuse.
And we do still have the ability for judicial review. I mean, you have the prosecutor reviewing the charge, and you also have a court determining whether or not there's guilt based upon the ordinance. So.
Yeah.
Councilor Spreitzer.
I also have some concern about how broad this is and making sure that we're writing the correct ordinance to deal with a problem, given that it's a specific problem that brought this forward. A couple of questions. I understand this is about parking lots. When we're talking about public property in the definition, am I correct that that would include basically everything that is also listed under B in terms of public streets, sidewalks, bridges, et cetera, that this wouldn't just apply to parking lots?
That's correct.
I guess that's where some of my concern is coming in is, we have a problem in parking lots. I understand that may move elsewhere, but, we're talking about a whole lot more than the city's parking lots, which I sort of understand, you should park and move on about your business. It's not a gathering spot, but there are types of public property that are gathering spots, and I guess I'm struggling with that a little bit. What's the legal definition of loiter? As I understand here, we talk about loiter in such a manner as to, but then in B we just say loiter in. I'm assuming that doesn't specifically reference A. So what would the definition of loiter in use in B be?
And I did not bring the rest of 1503 with me tonight. Loitering itself, I can't. I'm not prepared to provide you that definition. I know it appears in 1503, perhaps, Captain. Yeah, just 1503 sub 1 talks about no person shall loiter or prowl. If there's no definition of loiter within 1503, so then you would just go to the dictionary definition of loiter, and that I do not have.
Okay, I looked that up earlier. I can't quote it from memory.
It's merely not physical presence. It implies some length of time or some. It's not just merely being there.
And then, so if a person is requested to move by a police officer, doesn't remove, gets a citation, decides to challenge the citation, what would have to be proven? Do we have to prove that they didn't move when requested, or do we have to prove that the officer had a reason under the ordinance to request it? What does that look like?
I guess it would just depend upon the facts. The officer would have to have a basis to believe that there is a violation of loitering, so there would have to be some kind of presence and therefore a period of time. Under what we're envisioning under this ordinance is that they're part of the problem in like these lots that I'm talking about. So there would be some nexus between the behavior that they're experiencing and then the presence in the parking lot.
Thank you.
Councilor Lupke.
I really don't think we have much to be concerned about. It's nice to have a professional police department and individuals who take their job very seriously and do a good job. Based on my 20-some years as a principal at the high school, we had a problem at the private businesses at lunch hour with loitering. And with the help of the police department, we had signs posted at these businesses. And once those signs were posted, the police were able to come in and judiciously make an arrest if needed, but that gave the teeth. We've always had disorderly conduct. We're talking basically disorderly conduct. If an officer sees something that's detrimental or infringes upon somebody else's rights, they can make an arrest or take appropriate action. I think this gives the teeth that are needed. I think it's a good ordinance. It gives them a tool that they didn't have before because it's now posted. And once it was posted at those businesses, it cleared up a great deal of the problem. But it gives the police the tools when they come in. If they see something, they can use whatever tools are at their disposal to rectify the situation. And it makes things a lot smoother and safer. We're talking about a safety issue. And I'm concerned, too, with our revitalized downtown. Hopefully many more people moving into that East Grand Avenue Phoenix building at night. I certainly don't want to have our parking lots filled with some of the problems that you mentioned. Again, we have a very professional police department who use tact, diplomacy, and everything else at their disposal. This gives them, I think, hopefully a final tool to deal with problems that heretofore have not been dealt with in all cases. So I'm very much in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And Councilor Kincaid.
I too believe that there's a good reason for having this, but I do ask another question, yet another question that we've been from all of us is how would you distinguish between a vagrant and a loiterer? And is there a need to distinguish?
I mean, I think we maybe
another
You're not
definition.
going to help me out on this one. No, I mean, we do have a population of homeless here in the city of Beloit that we deal with, and a lot of times we ask them to kind of move along and keep going. So I think that if most of the time from my interaction with some of them is if you ask them to leave, they'll move the area for a period of time. This doesn't ban them forever from public property, but it does. I see Captain Racine standing behind me. But it does allow us a tool to keep people moving along, and most of them do move when asked from law enforcement. And
There's absolutely nothing about the homeless that isn't, okay, microphone. That isn't really about the issue. We do homeless counts, so we have a general idea what the population is with Terry Bone, who helps out doing that from upstairs. But that isn't a parking lot, public park type problem. That's usually a complaint generated problem that somebody saw somebody and wants somebody checked on.
Yeah.
It's not a loitering thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Councilor Kincaid? Councilor Spreitzer?
I just wanted to jump back in to say I don't have another specific question, but I'm still thinking about this in light of everyone's questions, which I think have been good ones. My preference would be not to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight, but to let this go through the normal time process, and that's how I'll vote on this particular motion.
Councilor DeForest?
I agree. That's why I appreciate the discussion before I voted on suspending the rules. I'd like some more time to think about this as well, and especially get my brain wrapped around how it'll be enforced. I do have great confidence in our police officers and their reasonable judgment, but I do want to have a clear sense of what this will look like as it plays out with enforcement. So thank you.
Councilor Levy?
Just a couple of points that I would like to add. I guess I'm somewhat, I'm not going to disagree with anyone asking to have it laid over and go through the proper time frame. But speaking only from my experience with the council, there's things that we kind of approved without it going through the normal processes. We're talking about, as Councilor Lukey said here, a safety issue. Sitting on that alcohol board, I hear meeting after meeting, the downtown businesses saying, we're trying to, you guys want us to control our crowd. You guys want us to control the individuals that's in our establishment. You keep saying that what we're doing is a privilege. It's not a right, it's a privilege. And we're doing all that we can to uphold the rules that you guys have set before us. Now we have a circumstance that's outside our control, and I can guarantee you that whenever a business in that area comes to the Alcohol Commission, they get beat up on. And why? Because of the crowd that's outside that they keep saying over and over again, we can't control it. We try to do what we can. We send security people out there. They don't leave. We need help. The PD is there often, quite a few nights on the weekends. And when they're there, it's not one or two squads that's there. It's more. So when you have that amount of manpower down there, we don't have that much in the city in the evenings at all. So the rest of the city is going unattended because we're spending a lot of resources at these locations. There's been sit-ins, stakeouts there to see what's going on down there. If this is a way to help minimize what's going on down there in these parking lots, to help our businesses that we keep saying we want to help, then I think we need to act on this because, sure, summer is almost over, so we probably won't see as much as we saw in the past. But we got to start somewhere because I think the businesses down there are saying we're doing everything that you're asking us to do. Now they're coming to us and short of calling the police and saying, can you come down here? I got trouble in this parking lot again, spending all those resources down there. And the police is coming down there just about every weekend, not just about, but every weekend. This is a way to kind of help minimize this and keep everybody safe that's downtown because the crowds in these parking lots are getting at a dangerous level, and you better believe if they're doing everything underneath the sun that there's safety concerns down there. I caution us for waiting to move this forward as with everything that we do, if we see where it's not working the way that we want it to work, we can always come back and revisit it. There are things that we come back and we revisit that does not involve safety issues to the citizens of this city.
Thank you, Councilor Levy. I have to put my 2 cents worth in. Having walked my dogs through that area all this summer, the things I've seen have appalled me. There are very few times in the city of Beloit when I felt uncomfortable, when my dogs have felt uncomfortable, and walking next to these 2 parking lots this summer has been utterly, thoroughly unacceptable. And for persons in this council to sit here and say that this is not a safety-related issue and we should just take our time with it fills me with, well, let's just say it's unpleasant. I'll leave it at that. I think that it's unacceptable for me to let this sit. Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. Thank you. I am in support of the intentions of this ordinance. In fact, I've been one of the thorns in the sides that's been complaining about the Rotary River Center parking lots to the Parks and Rec Commission probably for the last 6 months. Brian can attest to that. So I think, I can speak for most of my colleagues. We're in support of this. We are concerned about safety, but we always have to balance safety with that we're not infringing on people's freedom. So to me, there's a little fine line here that we have to walk, as some of this language does concern me, and I do want some time to think about the language and what it really means and how it could play out if there is a potential for it to be abused. And so I would appreciate the time. Especially number 2 is troubling to me, that we look at some of that specific language and how to tighten that up a little bit to give our officers more direction on what the intention of this ordinance really is in terms of enforcement. So I'm certainly very supportive of it. Just want to make sure that's very clear. But I want to pass an ordinance that I feel good about. Thank you.
Councilor Spreitzer.
I certainly agree with everything Councilor DeForest just said, but just wanted to add, I certainly don't want to suggest that I don't see this as a safety issue or that I don't think there's a problem. I think absolutely there's an issue. I just want to make sure that we're crafting the right solution to it and that the solution is as tailored to the problem as we can make it. And I think obviously this has come through a process, and this problem didn't start last weekend. And I think that given that, I hope that we can take the time, not a long time, but the couple more weeks that it would require, just to make sure that we're all comfortable with what this says and what it means, and that hopefully that will give our police officers the tools to tackle the problem. I also want to make clear that I completely trust our police force, as Councilor Van de Bogert was mentioning earlier, to use judgment in dealing with these issues. But my philosophy when you're writing rules is you don't write the rules for the people who are currently going to be enforcing them. You write rules that are good rules, and I think I just want to make sure that I'm comfortable that these are good rules, and there's a lot to digest here, and that's why I'm asking for the delay.
Councilor Kincaid.
I guess I'll just repeat what's been said. I too support this ordinance and its intent. I would like to see a little more time spent on it. It seems to me that by the very next meeting we should be able to have any clarity that's required. I know that it's a safety issue, but I haven't heard that there's some issues that can't wait for a week or 2 or 3.
Councilor Levy.
We can vote after this because I am thoroughly confused. I'm thoroughly confused that we sit here and we talk about we are here to represent the citizens. We are here to make sure that they're safe, make sure that we're doing all that we can to support the citizens, support the businesses, to make Beloit a safe community. Right now, my understanding is we have a process in place that on the weekend, if these parking lots fill up with hundreds of people like they do now,
and we call the police, and the police ask the individuals to move on, and they don't move, what is the recourse? Nothing. They can ask them to move. They don't move. The police is going to have to continue to ask them to move, which is going to escalate the situation. If people have been drinking a lot, it's going to escalate the situation. There's going to be problems. Now we're talking about safety, because if you have a parking lot full of 100 or 200 individuals, and you have worst case scenario, 8 police officers down there, I am sorry, is not an even battle. Now we can go in there, with this ordinance, we can ask an individual to move. They decide not to. We have something in place that we can arrest them, hold them accountable, and say, you're violating this ordinance that is in place. I understand, but I guess if you drive through there in the evenings and you see what our officers see every weekend and what they have to risk going down there to clear out a parking lot when they could be needed someplace else, I'm lost. I am totally at a loss that we would rather have our police department, that we're saying are professional individuals, to go to this establishment and just wreak havoc on citizens, because now we have a policy in place that says no loitering, so we can go in here and do whatever we want to do and we're covered. There's laws against speeding. There's laws against a lot of things, but I don't see the police officers pulling people over just to wreak havoc on them because there's a law against speeding and I'm just going to pull you over just to give you a hard time. I have faith in our police department that they don't do anything like that. They are going to uphold the law. But if we're talking about safety and we want the businesses to do the right things, and I think then we need to stand up and make sure that we're doing all that we can. So when we look back and we can say what's the harm in 2 or 3 weeks, we all know that there's been fights at different establishments. There's been near fights at different establishments. We are in a place, we're in a position to be able to do something right now, yet and still we want to sit back and say, let's wait. I'm not in favor of waiting.
Councilor Lupke.
This ordinance simply gives our police tomorrow, this weekend, the power to do what is necessary to do what Councilman Levy just said. I don't know how we can get much simpler, with due respect to my fellow councilors. No person shall loiter or remain on public property in such a manner as to create or cause to be created any disturbance or annoyance to the comfort of any person. Let me take that a step further. A police officer arrives on the scene. He or she makes a judgment based on their training, based on their expertise. In most cases, it's simply talking to people, negotiating. The problem can be taken care of. If somebody wants to play hardball, he or she can be arrested. I want the police to have that tool right now. I don't know why we're waiting. This is a simply stated ordinance that gives the police the power to do what is needed. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Councilor Spreitzer, do you have something new to add to this?
I just wanted to add that if this ordinance were only giving the police the power to do what we've just been talking about doing, I would absolutely vote for it tonight. I'm concerned with all of the other things that it says. If we do vote tonight, I have a couple of amendments that I just jotted down that I would propose, but I think rather than trying to amend on the fly, it would make more sense to table this.
Okay. One last call. Is there anything new that anyone has to add to this?
Mr. President, call the question, please.
Yes, let's do it. All in favor of suspending the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Councilor DeForest?
I voted nay. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that we've voted to suspend the rules by a vote of 4-3. Do I have a motion on the merits?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Lupke, or Levy, moved by, and second by Lupke. Excuse me, sir?
The Councilors Spreitzer, Kincaid, and DeForest voted in opposition of suspending the rules.
Okay. Councilor DeForest.
Since we're moving forward on the merits, doing the best I can here, I'd like to propose an amendment to the ordinance as it stands that In 4GA 2, the creator caused to be created any disturbance or annoyance to the comfort of any person, I would ask that we at least strike the word annoyance. And for lack of a better way to address this, annoyance is very, very broad and subjective. At least we have disturbance to the comfort of any person. I would like to propose at least that as some measure of compromise here.
Second.
Is that, Ms. Krieger, is that language common with any other of our other ordinances?
I think this is an uncommon ordinance, so
Yeah, it's okay. So,
Yeah.
so that particular phrase isn't found anywhere else. It doesn't have any particular.
there's no term of art was intended, no.
Okay, all right.
You would mean or annoyance, Councilor DeForest?
Yes, I would like to strike or annoyance, please. That's extremely subjective and doesn't seem to create as much harm as a disturbance. A lot could theoretically annoy someone, so I would like to strike that, please.
Okay, so. Have any other person wishing to speak on that particular matter? All in favor of Councilor DeForest's.
Was there a second? I'm sorry.
I second.
He's seconded by Spreitzer. Okay. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, so it was.
I voted aye.
Aye.
Take it out.
To take it out, so okay, so that we voted to amend by a vote of 4-3. That was Councilor Van de Bogart, Spreitzer, DeForest, and Kincaid. Councilor Spreitzer, did you have?
Yes, I have an amendment with two parts. I move to change the phrase in the first line of A from public property to public parking lot, and then in B to strike the various parts of the list other than public parking lot, so that that would also simply refer to public parking lots.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Councilor Levy.
I guess point of clarification here. Why would we want it just to say the parking lot and not public property? I guess I need clarification on that. What would be the reasoning behind that?
Councilor Spreitzer.
I guess we have a problem right now in public parking lots, and so the other public property, as indicated by the list in Section B, to me seems quite expansive, and given the breadth of this ordinance, I would be more comfortable limiting it to the area where we know there's a problem rather than sidewalks, bridges, other, public streets, other areas that could occur in any part of the city, and it just seems like we're talking about a great scope of territory where this conceivably could be enforced when what we're looking to do is enforce it in a fairly specific territory.
I think I'm comfortable with saying public property because, as we just mentioned not too long ago, that they're going to move. If we say public parking lots only, they're going to know, well, we can't go to the parking lot, but we can go to the nearest public place, and then we're going to be back here trying to amend the ordinance or adding that into it. If we're going to do this, we need to leave that public property in there. Otherwise, we're just going to have to move around the city to where there's a public property and not a parking lot.
If we and I would add that if you ask a group of people to move on, they could be moving en masse down the street and causing that continuous disturbance, or in front of somebody's house, or down an alleyway. I'm uncomfortable with removal of that myself. Councilor Van de Bogart.
Well, I also want to leave it as public property. I mean, you could be standing in the parking lot down there on 3rd or 4th Street or whatever it is, and you could move onto the sidewalk, and they couldn't touch you. I mean, it's just, you need to have that flexibility, I think.
Do we have any other questions or comments on that, this present amendment? Councilor DeForest.
Yes, I do have a question, and I'm sorry, I was hoping we would lay this over, so I'm not sure. I'm trying to grapple with my concerns and ask intelligent questions. Attorney Krieger, do you have any sense that this ordinance, as it's written, would affect a group's ability to protest, let's say, in public spaces?
The ordinance as it's written does not affect anyone's constitutional rights.
So an officer who sees a group, let's say on a sidewalk protesting, I just want to make sure I understand. This ordinance, as I understand it, the officer could determine that this is a disturbance of peace and could ask the group to move. And then if they don't, there would be subsequent violations?
Yeah, this ordinance cannot affect someone's rights. If you're going to protest, that's protected under the First Amendment. This ordinance does not change that.
Okay, so then we would expect officers to use judgment on whether someone's protesting or just loitering. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lupke?
I think it's been spoken to, but I just wanted to reaffirm the need for public property. We can't tie the hands of the police. I can see them moving, and I know we have rules on their parks, but I can see them going to Leeson's Park or going to the tennis courts down at Riverside Drive or whatever. They'll just move to a different location in Dairy Queen parking lot, whatever. It's just we need to have public property in there.
Thank you. Councilor Spreitzer.
We're talking about large groups of people, which I think is clearly the biggest part of the issue. Is there anything in here that would prevent us, the police, from determining that a single person is loitering on, say, a park bench or a public sidewalk or anywhere else around town if they were remaining there for a while without an obvious purpose?
No, the ordinance says no person shall, so it does not just apply to large groups.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think let me get a clarification myself. When we talk about that, it just simply someone sitting on a park bench for a few hours, unless they were creating some kind of other annoyance or disturbance, that's what triggers the enforcement, not just somebody reading a book on a park bench.
Correct,
right?
and I would hope our police department wouldn't arrest someone for reading a book.
I certainly would hope so as well. Thank you. Is that what you were intending, Councilor Spreitzer? Okay, thank you. Mr. Van de Bogart?
Well, I appreciate the discussion that we've had this evening. It's been a good discussion. The rub is when this grant of authority is abused. That's the rub. And it's broad enough so that it could be abused. I'm assuming it's not going to be, but if it is, this council or future councils may have to rein in police action or police authority if it is abused. Again, I can recall circumstances during Vietnam War protests where the police authorities in Madison and Dane County routinely, without cause, harassed groups of students with everything from arrest to tear gas to confrontations to on. And you were close to a situation of a police riot. It wasn't to this extent of Chicago during the 1968 Democratic National Convention, but it was a wild and woolly time, and I'm sure there were abuses both sides what was going on. I don't anticipate this sort of issue in Beloit, but who knows? And there is no guarantee. We can't write an ordinance that says be reasonable. We either grant the authority and we see, or if it's abused, we rein it back in. So.
Okay. All right then. I think it's time to call the question. Call the question on the amendment to change item A from public property to public parking lots.
And also, Councilor Spreitzer's amendment included an amendment to 4G sub B in striking all of the language that is not public parking lot.
Public parking lots. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
That would be Councilor DeForest and Councilor Spreitzer.
Aye, too.
Okay. And Councilor Kincaid. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. That would be the balance. Okay, so the items as it stands was amended to remove the word annoyance. We defeated the amendment to change to public parking lots. Is there any questions or comments that anybody would make? Councilor DeForest.
I'm sorry, this might feel like I'm belaboring it, but I just feel pretty strongly. I want to make sure that for the record that I in registering my support for the intention of this ordinance and my confidence in our officers for enforcement. I still have concerns about protection of individual rights and freedoms. So this is where the rub is for me. I appreciate my Councilor Van de Bogart's comments about we could always rein it in, but I'd rather be proactive and write a good ordinance than work on having to rein in later. This is not how I would have liked to have seen this ordinance be crafted here or developed here, but I think we're unfortunately faced with the situation that we have. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. All right then. Let's do this as a roll call vote rather than having to make too much guesswork. Call the matter.
We do need a motion in the second on the merits.
Move in second. Oh, I thought we'd already had that, but okay. Moved by Levy, second by Lubke. Let's start with a roll call vote then.
Okay. DeForest?
Aye.
Kincaid?
Aye.
Spreitzer?
Nay.
Haynes?
Aye.
Levy?
Aye.
Lubke?
Aye.
Van de Bogart?
Aye.
The motion to enact the ordinance on the merits passes by a vote to 6-1, with Councilor Spreitzer voting in opposition.
Thank you. Move forward to item 9, appointments. We do have appointments today. We have, let's start with this. The undersigned Charles M. Haynes, duly elected President of the Beloit City Council, subject to confirmation of the Beloit City Council, does hereby appoint the following citizen members to the vacancies and terms indicated below. Said appointments being pursuant to nominations made by and approved by the Appointment Review Committee in the regular meeting held September 9th, 2013. Appointments, Parks and Recreation and Conservation Advisory Commission, Keston Geistwalker, 700 College Street, Box 852, replacing Steve Ferger for a term ending September 30th, 2015. Incumbent Rebecca Charles, youth position, for a term ending September 30th, 2014. And incumbent Mark Preuschel for a term ending September 30th, 2016. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Moved by Levy, second by DeForest. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. I'd like to announce the following vacancies. Alcohol Beverage Licensing Control Committee has 1 vacancy for resident. Appointment Review Committee has 2 vacancies for residents. Board of Appeals has 1 vacancy alternate for residents. Board of Ethics has 1 vacancy for former city councilor, 3 vacancies for residents. Board of Review has 1 vacancy alternate for resident. Business Improvement District, 1 vacancy for owner-occupant. Community Development Authority has 1 vacancy for public housing resident. Equal Opportunity Commission has 1 vacancy for resident. Landmark Commission has 2 vacancies for residents. Municipal Golf Committee has 1 vacancy for youth. Parks and Recreation Conservation Commission has 1 vacancy for resident. Plan Commission has 1 vacancy for resident, and Traffic Review Committee has 2 vacancies for residents. Please